Yeah, I can do that.
Greetings. Long time no see. Recently, I had this urge to actually make some content on this godforsaken website, but I needed a little push, you know? So I decided the only way to go forward is to become a two-dimensional character, both literally and figuratively. But first, I need to replace this old school flesh of mine with a nice two-dimensional body of a VTuber. But how does one do that? Great question, Fletcher from the physical realm. The plan is simple. We take my already existing 2D body, give it a facelift, cut it up, ship the whole thing to Live2D, glue it back together, and by the end I should still have just enough brain cells to put the whole thing into VTube Studio, set up the tracking, and Bob's your uncle, I guess. So let's do that!
Bam, boom, bam, boom, bam, boom.
First, I need to use my artistic prowess to create a model that can actually be animated later. I also took this opportunity to make myself look a little better. Whether or not I actually succeeded in that is up to debate, but I digress. First, I started with a simple sketch. I then sent that sketch to my good friend Martin, who unlike me is an actual artist. He gave me a facelift and I used his reworked sketch to finish the rest of the drawing. The next step is to cut up the model so that it can be imported into Live2D. This process may seem difficult at first, but I used a simple rule to make it easy. If it's going to move, separate it, otherwise leave it alone. Also make sure to draw in the parts that may end up being exposed during movement, otherwise it's going to look silly. Depending on how ADHD you want your model to be, you may want to separate more stuff, but I'm going to keep mine fairly simple, because the more things you separate, the more work you make for yourself when you're going to animate your model later. After making sure everything is separated and ready, we can move on to part 2. Live2D Cubism is a rigging software made by the Japanese, which means it's visually stuck in the year 2004. This is the part of the process where you may want to look up some tutorials, as Live2D is not very intuitive at first. I used tutorials and tips from Omori, but there are plenty more out there, so pick whoever works best for you. I will leave some useful links in the description, right below the like button. I split my workflow into two parts, the head and everything else. I started with the body movement, as that was the easiest to do on a model like this. I then moved on to rigging the mouth. I used this fancy little chart from Kira. Since my mouth is a little unconventional, it looked a bit goofy, but I later fixed the meshes, so it's all good. Next up, eyes. Very simple, you just rig one eye and reflect it. This is where most professionals would spend weeks making the eyes look like the Big Bang just happened, but I just squished my irises a little and called it a day. Finally, it was time to rig the rest of the head. Normally, you would make sure to properly deform every part of the head to create the illusion that it is actually turning around. However, I'm not nearly sophisticated enough to figure out how perspective works, so I just squished everything on one side and stretched it on the other side. I compensated for the lack of head turning by making the range of body movement wider to give the illusion that there is more movement than there actually is. Lastly, I added physics for the hair, and with some final touches, the model was rigged. I then rigged another model for my friend Martin, whom you may remember from the drawing part of the process, learned many new things and decided to re-rig some parts of the model. Not much has changed, but trust me, it looks better, okay? Anyway, tracking time. Finally, it was time to actually figure out how to track my movement and reflect it onto the model. There are many popular tracking solutions, but I decided to use VTube Studio. It's free, it supports RTX AI tracking, and the developer is based in Europe. Setting up the model was very simple. You just import your model and set up your tracking settings. I'm using RTX tracking with a webcam. There are plenty of options, so pick whichever works best for you. I then played with some parameters to make sure the model responds to my movement properly. There are still some issues. For example, my room is usually very dark, so the webcam sometimes struggles with quality. This could be remedied by buying some proper lighting in the future. And just like Fletcher here, I too am wearing glasses. My glasses have an anti-blue light coating on them, making them reflect blue light from my monitors, creating weird artifacts on camera and muddying up eye tracking. This could be remedied by not being blind. Other than that, we are done. So yeah, that's how I turned myself into a VTuber. Will this actually force me to make more YouTube videos? Probably not. But hey, let's have fun while it lasts, alright? As for the model itself, if a complete beginner like me could figure it out, so can you. It's also completely free. So yeah, if you're looking to get into this hobby, I hope this video motivated you. As for me, I will be streaming here on YouTube, so if you want to see me fuck around and find out, you should subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on the X app. I will be posting my schedules on both sides. So yeah, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, farewell. But first, I need to replace this two-dimensional body of mine. What the fuck?
Jimmy! Jimmy! Jimmy, where are you going, Jimmy?